Alright, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be starting a new series where I teach you guys like how to build creative maps like this, because I know a lot of you guys try creative maps but you might not know how to do certain things. So I'm going to try to help you guys out if you're having any problems with creative, or even if you aren't, if you just want to know how I built this map and all my other minigame maps, because sometimes they can get a little bit complicated. So alright, so this first one I'm just gonna be going through basics of island settings and setting up the island and stuff, so you might already know how to do a lot of this stuff, but just in case you don't, I'm just starting from the beginning and working my way all the way through. You can use whatever you want, obviously it depends on what you want to make. For my minigames I always use the shoreline island. It's because the shoreline islands have the most flat land out of all of them. So that's the one that I use for all my minigames. So that's what I'm going to be using here. So once all of that is gone, the only thing that you can't get rid of is this. You'll know that you've gotten rid of it once the storage says 2. 2 out of 100,000 space used up. So yeah, we're going to go through these settings and I'll explain what all of them do. So this one, it doesn't really matter if you're in a party together. It's pretty simple. Voice chat if you just want it to be everybody. Team or none. It's mainly a published. This one's obviously the max amount of players. I always have these as all 16. So this one, free for all, it's everybody's against each other. There's no team numbers or anything, so when you look at it, it will just say the names. Cooperative is everybody on a team, and custom is the one that I always use because it will show team numbers, and you can have devices and stuff switch. Actually, I think that's in here too as well, but if you don't have it set to custom, you can't have custom teams during the game. Okay, so this one, split evenly, just splits it up evenly, and then dynamic allows the devices and stuff I was talking about earlier, which is what I always have it set up. It doesn't matter unless it's published, but if it's off, it's basically just if it can put party members on separate teams, or if the party members have to be on the same team. This one depends on how you want it set up. Sometimes I'll have a default class, sometimes you don't, and I'll get into classes in a later video, but for now I'll just leave it at none. I want to switch to end of the round, so basically, let's say you were in box fights or something, so you have all the box fight stuff, then the round ends, it will put you back to no class, so you'll lose all that stuff. If you have it at the end of the game, you'll keep all the stuff from the last round. Spawn limit, you want to put that at 1, it's pretty simple, just how many times you can spawn. After last spawn, so you can either have it or go to another team. They won't spawn again, but they'll on the scoreboard they'll be on another team. Spectator is probably the best. Total rounds, you can have this at whatever. Usually creative games are at 10. Team rotation, if you want the teams to get switched up every round, or if you just want everybody to stay on the same team. I just have it disabled. Let's say I had it set to 3 rounds. So if I have this set to no, then no matter what, you'll play all 3 rounds. If I turn it to yes, then it's basically best out of 3. So if somebody gets 2 wins, nobody else can beat them, the game would end. I think it's better to just have that off. Unless you're doing rock, paper, scissors tournament or something, best of 3, I don't know. But yeah, so team visuals, if you want the colors and stuff to change every round, or game start, doesn't really matter for most games. I just keep it at round start. Time limit, you most likely want to turn it off unless you're having a timed thing. The fastest time is if you have a way for somebody to get to finish it, and then whoever gets their first win. All teams must finish, let's say you had a death run with a thing at the ends to 1 point wins or something, and then when they get to the end they get the point. Would everybody have to get the point for it to end, or would just one person? Which I just keep it at no. Win condition, so at the end of the 10 rounds, if you want the most rounds wins, or the team with the highest score, combined throughout all the rounds. I keep it at rounds. So for this one, it's basically just all ending round things. So do you want a certain amount of eliminations to end it? A certain amount of creature eliminations, such as zombies, objectives, collect items, score. Well, I'll talk about some of the stuff later as well. But the one that you want to have on, pretty much for any map, is last standing, so when there's only one person left, the game will end. Okay. So this is also something that I think is definitely the best, at least for mine. So to join, if let's say the game's already started, do you want people to have to spectate for all 10 rounds when they join? Do you want them to spawn right away, or wait until the next round and then spawn? I put it to spawn in next round because I don't want them spawning while the game's going on, but I don't want to have them wait until all 10 rounds are over. Do you want them to spawn on the spawn pads, the sky, or wherever they are currently? I would recommend spawn pads unless like you're doing like a battle royale or something, maybe where everybody starts in the sky and then they can glide down wherever, but otherwise spawn pads are probably the best. Do you want people to respawn by themselves or as like a group of people? Okay, so after the game is done, where they'll spawn. So like, probably the island start is the best. And I have it set to no, usually, but you could set it to yes. Basically, if there's no spawn pads that are enabled, then usually it would just spawn them in the sky. But if you don't want them to be able to spawn in the sky at all, you can turn it to yes. Auto start also only really matters for published islands, and it's just how long after somebody enters it that it will start. The game start, when you press the start game, there's the countdown, starts in 3, 2, 1. I would recommend having it at like a lower time, because I don't really know why you would need to have it at 10 seconds of waiting. But you can do whatever. This one doesn't really matter. Vehicle tricks record, but realize this one doesn't really matter. So, unless you want like anything that's built in round 1 to still be there in round 2. Allow out of bounds. If you have like walls and stuff in ways that your like players can't get out of like certain areas, this one won't really matter. But basically there's like the orange barrier around your map, and if you want to let people out of the boundaries, it doesn't really matter too much, but assuming that you have like ways to stop them from getting out. Otherwise you could put it to off and just not let them out. Allow spectating other teams. I would recommend having that on. So these ones, it's really only matters, I guess not necessarily, because you kind of have like devices that get score and end the game eventually, but if you have the score to end on to like whatever number you have it set to, then if let's say like I had the score to end set to 10 or something, and then the eliminations on like the score at 5 and assists at like 3 or something, and obviously when you get an eliminate assist, it will add up. Friendly fire, obviously it's just shooting each other, and player collision, if you can walk through each other or not. Alright, so the next set of settings we have are the settings. So the top 6 of them basically just change how the game looks. Just mess around with these settings if you want to change stuff. It's not really a whole lane in here. Alright, so how much health do you want people to have? And like, do you want them to start with 1 or have a maximum of 1 or 100, which is obviously normal. Can go up to whatever you want. I think what's the max? 10,000 is the highest you can go. And then what percent of that do you want to be full already? And then same for shields. Infinite ammo and resources, pretty simple. The max, obviously in like a regular battle royale, it's 999, which is usually what I put it to, but it doesn't really matter for most things. Just like depends how many resources you want people to be able to have. Like, the only thing that my minigames really have resources in, I guess, are like box fights and just probably like teams of 4 or something in this new one are like the only ones that you really get resources in, and I just put it to the default like 999. Harvest style, unless you have environment damage on, otherwise that won't matter. So I'm pretty sure environment damage is coming up somewhere down here, but otherwise this won't really matter unless you can actually break stuff. Same with the harvest multiplier. Aim assist, you can disable anybody who has aim assist from using it. Building, I just set this to none for default. Actually, no, I have to set this to all for default. So, because for some reason, for like if you want to have like a box fight or something, like if you're trying to make like a mini games, if you want to have a box fight, and this is where the default class selector will come in, but I'll talk about that later. some reason, if you want to be able to edit stuff, you have to allow all building in here. I don't know, it's really weird, but for some reason that's how it has to be. And then, do you want everybody to be able to edit stuff, even if it's not there? Is it just default? So this one, I'd like, if you're trying to make like a minigames map or something, you should turn that off, because if there's like, let's say there's a fence or something, do you want people to be able to like break the map with building, or do you just want them to like not be able to do that? So here's what I was talking about before for the harvest style. So that won't matter unless you can do environment damage, which I have off in all mine because I don't want anybody to break the map. Structure damage. So the difference between environment and structure, environment is like what you placed before the game started, like buildings and stuff. The structures are what people placed during the game. So like walls, ramps, all that stuff. Weapon destruction, so if you just want it to be normal, it's just 100%. But how much damage do you want stuff to do? The player structures, same with pickaxe. People to not be able to pickaxe each other, you could turn that off. Otherwise you should just keep it on. And then the attack range, how far do you want the pickaxe to be able to reach? And then start with pickaxe. This is something that's new actually. So if you put it to no, but you just start with nothing. I guess I spawn in the sky, but because I didn't have any spawners. But yeah, you just start with like your hands. It's kind of weird, but I don't know. Like, I guess it could be good for some things, but I prefer to just have people start with their pickaxes. The next thing is the down but not out, so like it's just getting knocked. Eliminated players' items drop. You can have them keep them, so like if they respawn, they keep them, or delete them, they just completely disappear. Allowing item drop and item pickup. Can people pick stuff up off the ground or drop stuff out of their inventory? I'd say just have that on. All of these, I just keep it don't override. It's basically like, do you want to like override people's individual settings? So like in your settings, if you have, I don't know where it is, but yeah, like auto pick up weapons on or stuff, you can make it so that people can't do that in your minigame or your game. I just keep that all to not override. Respawn time, you can have it however you want, however many seconds you want it to take. I usually just set it to 3. Spawn immunity, I usually turn it off, because if it's on, then nobody can hurt them for however many minutes they have it for. Fall damage, depends on the type of map, but I just keep it off at the start. Gravity, jump fatigue, like, if you don't know what jump fatigue is, it's like when you do like multiple jumps in a row, eventually you'll start like jumping less high like this. Like, off, then there won't be any of that. Like glider redeploy, I just turn it off. Player flight, for most games I'd recommend having that off because other people can fly, like basically like as if you're creating it, they can fly. Player names, who can see your name above your head. And then all this stuff for what you want to grant on elimination. And then this one, so self-damage on hit amount, basically what that's saying is it would be good for like prop hide and seek or something. I'd say it would probably be the best for it. So if you turn this to like 10 or something, and then on non-zero damage, so you might want to, if you have environment damage off, you would have to turn this to no for it to work, because basically what this does is when you hit something else, you'll take this much damage. But if it's set to non-zero, then if that's set to yes, that means that you have to actually deal damage to the object for it to deal damage to you. Which if you can't do environment damage, then that wouldn't work. So you'd probably have to have that off. So the self-damage target filter and weapon and all this, so if what you have it set to, so do you want it to only work when it's a non-player that you hit, or when it's a player that you hit, or just both? And then weapons, like what type of weapons are gonna allow you to take self-damage. Allow manual respawning, you'll just have an option in your settings to respawn if you want. And then show all these resources. I usually have the gold off because I just don't really use it for anything. But the gold, it's just another resource. So then the maximum equipment spots, you can make it so that you only have your pickaxe or 1 item, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is the normal, so if it's don't override, it's also 5. And then when somebody dies, do you want there to be the death sound, or just want it to be silent? Yeah, so this next one is basically the last settings that I have to go through. The others aren't really settings. So this one, I always put these down to 3 seconds for each. You can have it at whatever you want, but I just feel like it's a little bit annoying to have to wait like 10 seconds or something in between rounds. And it's just much quicker and faster if you have it at 3, or something else if you would like. So this one on status is only available for two teams. The rest will just show like how many each player has. So the cumulative stat means that, do you want to show for each individual round, or do you want all 10 rounds to be shown on the scoreboard? If you have it to yes, it'll show like all 10 rounds combined scores. So like when you pick up items and stuff on the right side or left, wherever it shows up, it says like plus 10 wood or something. When you get a kill, do you want to show like every single thing that you get or not? Let's keep that at no. And then these ones, so basically when you look at the scoreboard, like, I don't actually, okay, I can't see it right now. Basically when you're showing this, or when you're looking at the scoreboard, there will be like the different columns. You can have up to 5 different columns of what you want to put on it. And basically whichever the top one is up here is what will decide who wins. And then if it's a tie, then the next, it will go to the next one. So usually I put the time alive for the top one, and then I put eliminations usually. What else do I put? Score. For some games I have a score. I usually put the score above that. And then I'll put the eliminations. And then I usually just put like damage dealt just for fun, so you can see how much damage you dealt and how much you took as well during that game. And then you can choose if you want to see the map or the scoreboard. So even if you put it to the map, you'll still be able to see the scoreboard when the game ends. Once again, this is basically the same as this one. It's just cumulative for each round individually. This one only matters for like published islands, if you want to see like the code and the person who made it on top. I usually just keep all these the same, but it's just like you can change what happens at the end of the game, add custom like words for victory and defeat. And then this will just hide the elimination feed for players, and then it will show the party elimination. It will hide the party eliminations, so like you can't see how many your party members, like how many kills they have and stuff. That's pretty much it for settings. The rest in here, backup, so it automatically saves it. Like, I don't know how long it saves it, every like few minutes or something. Or like when you leave, it automatically saves. But if you make a backup, then that backup will be stored there until you make a new one. And then if you ever want to go back to that backup, you can restore it, because you can't do that like with the auto saves. You can only do that with backups, which can be useful sometimes. Like if you're going to try out something big, you don't know if it will work, you could make a backup, and then if it doesn't work, you could just restore it. Otherwise, you could just keep it. Unless you have a creator code, you won't see the publish in this one, so those don't really matter. And then reset obviously just resets it. Then obviously this just allows edit permissions, and these also don't really matter unless you have it published. You can add a description and then it will show up like on your island, but this doesn't really matter too much for the islands. Alright, so that's everything you really need to know about the settings. Not sure what the next part of the video will be, or the next video is going to be about. But yeah, that's about it for this video. So I hope that this guy's helped you out if you're going to be having any problems with making a creative map, or if you just weren't sure what something does. But yeah, I'll just be going through showing you how to make. I'm going to be showing you how to make a minigames map, but so you can use these like tutorials to every kind of map you want. So, alright, well, I'll see you guys in the next video.